Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to install Windows Server 2022 on VirtualBox step by step. I'll go from setting up the virtual machine to getting your server running, and I'll explain the different editions so you know which one to choose. There are four main options split into two categories, Standard and Data Center, and each one comes with or without desktop experience. The Standard Edition is great for smaller setups or labs where you don't need a lot of enterprise level features. The Data Center Edition, on the other hand, includes everything from standard plus additional capabilities for large-scale environments. Next up, we have the two installation types, Desktop Experience and Server Core. Desktop Experience gives you the familiar Windows interface, easy to navigate with a mouse and Windows. Server Core, however, doesn't include that interface. It's controlled mainly through the command line or PowerShell, which makes it lighter, faster, and ideal for data centers where performance and security matter more than visuals. For this tutorial, I'll be downloading and installing Windows Server 2022 Data Center with Desktop Experience. But don't worry, the installation steps are exactly the same for all editions. The first thing we need to do is download the ISO image for Windows Server 2022. You can find it for free on the Microsoft official website. Type Windows Server 2022. Click the first link. Download the ISO. To download the ISO image, you will need to complete this form and then click the download button. I'll complete the form myself, and once the download is ready, I'll come back and we'll continue with the next step. After clicking the download button, here you need to select your download. I'll choose English, and then I'll pick the ISO downloads for 64-bit edition. Click here, and the download starts. To save time, I have already downloaded the ISO image, so I'll cancel this download. If you finished downloading the ISO image, now let's create the virtual machine. Click Machine and then New. I'll name my server DC1. The server will be saved in this folder by default, and I'm going to select the ISO image later. For the operating system is Microsoft Windows, and for the Windows Server we're going to install is Windows Server 2022. Scroll down. Here is it, Windows Server 2022 64-bit edition. Next, we need to specify the virtual hardware. For the RAM, I'm going to assign 8 GB to speed up the installation process. It's usually better to allocate more RAM to speed up the installation process, and you can always reduce it later, and I'll show you how. For the CPU, I'm going to assign 2 processors. And for the virtual hard disk, 50 GB is great, so click Finish. Now that we have the virtual machine ready, let's add the ISO image. Click Settings. Here we can see all the information about our virtual machine that we created. You see the name, the operating system, the location, and here is the 8 GB we assigned. You can change it later from the settings and then system. I'm going to leave it like this because we still need to finish the installation process. Now let's go and add the ISO image. Here's the 50 GB we created, and in this empty CD we are going to add the ISO image. Click here, choose a disk file. The ISO image will be under Downloads. Click here, Open, click OK. Now let's power up the virtual machine. Double click. The first thing we need to do is to select the language that we want to install. English. Click Next. Install now. On this page, we need to select the operating system we want to install. We have four options. Two of them are desktop experience, which mean we'll have a full graphical interface, just like normal Windows, with buttons and a complete desktop environment. The other two options are server core editions, which require using the command line similar to working in PowerShell. I'll select Windows Server 2022 Data Center Evaluation Desktop Experience. Make sure to choose the correct one because the installation will proceed with whichever operating system you select. Once you have selected the right option, click Next. Accept, click here, and then click Next. Which type of installation you want. If we click here, it will assume that we already have a Windows Server and we just want to upgrade, but that's not the case, so we're going to click Custom. Here's the 50 gigabyte we created. Click Next. And the installation started. I'm going to pause the video until the installation is done. The installation is done, and now we need to assign an administrator password. Here it's saying the password you type does not meet the password complexity requirements. This means you will need to create a more complex password. For example, make it longer, include both lowercase and uppercase letters, as well as numbers and special characters. Also, try to avoid easily guessable information. This will help keep your server secure. So I'm going to write my password now, make it more complex. I'm going to log into the server with the password that I just created. To log in, click Input, Keyboard, Insert, Control Alt, Delete. Server Manager will start automatically as it always does with Windows Server. Here's the local server. You can see all our settings here, name, IP address, and make changes as needed. But before we do the initial configuration, let's install the VirtualBox Guest Editions so we can enable full screen mode. Click Devices, insert Guest Edition, and then go to the File Explorer. Click here, double click, and click here, VirtualBox Windows Editions 64. Click Next, Next, Install, and the installation started. After the installation is done, it will ask us to restart the machine. Reboot now, yes, click finish. And the restarting started. Click input, keyboard, Control Alt Delete, log in. To enable the full screen mode, click View, Full Screen Mode, switch, and now our server is in a full screen mode. We downloaded the guest edition successfully. Now let's move on to the local server. I'm going to start by changing the name. Click here, click change. I'm going to name it DC1. Changing the name requires restarting the computer, but we're not going to do that now. First, I'm going to change the IP address also. Right now, the server is using a dynamic IP address from the DHCP. The DHCP is a service that automatically assigns IP addresses to a device on a network. For example, your home router acts as a DHCP server. It gives a unique IP address to every device connected to the Wi-Fi. In this virtual machine, the DHCP is doing the same thing. It's automatically assigning our server a unique IP address, which might change over time. However, this can cause reliability issue, especially because later on I'm going to promote this server to be a domain controller. For a domain controller, we need a static IP address, which is a fixed address that does not change. This ensures that other machines on the network can always find and connect to the domain controller. So click here to change it. Click Properties. I highly recommend unchecking the IPv6 because we're not using it, and security should always disable any service or feature that's not being used. In this case, we're only using the IPv4, so we don't need the IPv6 to be configured or enabled. Unselect it and click the IPv4. Click Properties. Obtain an IP address automatically. We don't want that. We want a static IP address. Click here. I'm going to assign the IP address 192.168.1.1.1. The subnet mask will be assigned automatically as 255.255.255.0. We don't need a default gateway because this is a local lab network. For the DNS, we will use 192.168.1.1. That's because, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to make the server a domain controller, and by default, a domain controller installs the DNS server, so it will act as its own DNS server. Click OK, and then click Close. Now, let's restart the machine. Click OK. Restart now. To log in, click here, Input, Keyboard, Control Alt Delete. let's go to the local server, and you can see here the name changed and also the IP address. And there's also another way to check the IP address. Search for CMD, write IP config / all, and you can see here the IP address and the subnet mask that we assigned. And that was it for today's video. I hope you find it helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.